Hello, I'm Rashmi Bhandari, and today I've got my students Fawaz Abid. He's from CS branch and he's cleared Deloitte. So hello Fawaz.
Hi ma'am.
Yeah. So Fawaz, will you just quickly introduce yourself?
I'm Fawaz. I'm from final year computer science background. Yeah, I like to code. I've been coding since my first year of engineering. Also the vice president of SOSE.
All right. So SOSE is the Sahyadri open source community. All right. And what do you do in SOSE?
So our main goal in SOSE is to we learn any technologies or any technology or any concept in computer science, and then we want to pass it. So we'll take workshops and then we'll pass it down to our juniors. And then when those juniors become seniors, they will try to take workshops and pass it down to their juniors. So we'll have a flow of knowledge. Yeah, that's the main goal, and we conduct events and workshops for that purpose.
Okay. So Fawaz, now you've got into Deloitte. So will you please tell what is the role, what is the designation, and what is the eligibility criteria?
Anyone from any branch could join.
Oh, even mechanical and civil.
Mechanical.
All right.
Even mechanical. And the eligibility criteria was above 60% and 7 CGPA.
That is only in engineering or including 10th and 12th?
Only engineering. They did not check 10th and 12th marks.
And the role and the designation?
Role and designation was product engineer.
Product engineer, so it's a core technical job?
It's a core technical job.
Alright, but open to all branches?
Open to all branches.
Alright, great. So what were the rounds?
So we had 3 rounds. First we had a coding round. It was online. We had there were 4 questions in the coding round. The first question was an easy question. It was a dynamic programming question. The second one was a hard question. It was a trees question, and at the end they gave 2 medium questions. So it was total 2 hours. Each question would get half an hour.
All right.
Yeah.
So this is something that you regularly do in your labs and practicals, or is it something?
I would say, yeah, you would learn these concepts, but the questions are not something that would appear in a lab. Right. The questions that would appear in a lab are more easier.
All right. So could you explain this? I mean, a little idea so that people get it. I mean, like what sort of questions are these?
If you go to any competitive programming platform like Geeks for Geeks, CodeChef, I would suggest more like CodeChef and LeetCode. You would find these questions more in an interview question. There will be a big paragraph story. It would depend from some questions might have small questions, but some would have big. And your goal is to just read the whole question, understand what the question is asking for you, asking from you, and to solve the question. And whereas like college question, it would just be it is way simpler then.
Okay. Yeah. So if someone goes to these coding platforms, it would be helpful.
Yeah, it would definitely.
And you said you were doing it right from the first year.
Yeah, I would spend good amount of time in my first and second year doing competitive programming.
Okay.
Then I used to spend most of my time in development.
So if someone wants to use these platforms, which one would you say is good for someone to begin with? Easiest
would be HackerRank.
HackerRank. Then after that.
I haven't used every platform.
Yeah, but whichever
according to me, I would say HackerRank, then CodeChef, then LeetCode.
Then LeetCode. Yeah. So if you do all this, then it should be easy for you to handle all these coding questions.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to go to all 3 platforms and then master all. One platform you can even stick to HackerRank, but I think HackerRank has slightly easier questions compared to CodeChef. CodeChef has a variety of questions, easiest to get into would be HackerRank.
All right. Okay. And then what are the next rounds?
So after that, the next day itself, we had our interview rounds. In the interview rounds, they focused mainly on projects. They did not focus on asking us a lot of questions. They focused mainly on our projects. So in the first round went well, and he asked me to introduce myself. I introduced myself, and he went through the projects. You should know your projects well. Try to understand why you used what technology, and try to relate it to the core concepts that you have learnt in college. That will be nice.
So what sort of questions do they ask when they talk about your project?
So first of all, they'll ask you to brief you about your project. What technology, what language did you use, what database, what did you use to connect the database, and then the language, the programming language. They would ask something like that, and then they would ask like, yeah, I mean that's about
Yeah, could
it.
you
They
be
just-
like for you, what did they ask? I know your project would be something very different, but whatever. Like, but if you can
Yeah.
just remember any of those questions, I know it happened
Yeah,
quite
I-
some time back.
I think. No,
So what was your
those were
project
the two.
about? What
My
was your-
project was a distributor management system.
Huh.
That was the question I got asked about. And then they had asked me, so in my resume, I had written a graphical user interface and that manages and multiple transactions and transaction between a distributor, supplier, and a retailer. And then they asked me to elaborate about like the schema and the. So I had and then at the last point I had written automate several tasks. So they asked me what did you automate. So just explaining about what you did in the project, what did you build is more than enough.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just know your project. I think that's.
All right.
Good.
But everyone knows their project, but they're not able to answer. So that's why, when it says know your project, do a project, it's not as simple as that. Because do you remember how many got shortlisted? Because I remember the numbers were not so high. So if you're asking for 7 CGP or 60%, right? What was it? 7, this thing?
7 CGP, they'll get converted to 60%.
Yeah, so 60%. So actually, that's a very average percentile, right? So why is it that people don't clear? Hardly in the final round, how many selects were there for Deloitte?
5
Only
selects.
5 at the end.
Yeah.
So can you imagine open to all branches with just a 60% percentage, but in the end 5, and everyone does a project, but everyone is not able to answer a project, right?
Right,
So
right.
yeah.
Yeah, and then afterwards he asked me a puzzle.
Okay.
And that was the end of the.
Okay. What was the puzzle all about?
So he asked me how would you build a snake and ladder game using operating system concepts. No, sorry, not operating system. Object oriented programming concepts.
Okay.
Sorry, concepts.
Huh.
Yeah. So then he gave me some time. I went to the other room. I just wrote down a few stuff, figure out what to. Say, and then he interviewed someone else, and then I went back, and then
All right.
I gave my answer.
So that was okay, or it was?
It went well. It
all
went
right.
nice. It was
Okay.
nice.
Then
My first round, yeah, that was done for me. My first interview was short.
that's it. No,
Yeah.
nothing else.
That's it.
Only this much.
And
All
it's-
right.
And then he had asked a few more questions about but then again, just briefing the project. Nothing. in
So
detail.
everything related to the project.
Yes.
And for the others, it was the same way for the others, or
I think it was different.
It was different.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
different. But again, projects, but they would also ask like algorithms. What algorithms did you use in the project, and then ask them to explain a few more algorithms.
all
Yeah.
right, okay. And then did you have an HR round or anything else?
We had a final round, but it was not an HR round. It was a technical round itself. This one is a bit tougher. So again, projects. They would go through your projects. They would ask you your experience. They would again how they get to know what projects you worked on is your resume. So they go through your resume. They try to find out flaws in your resume. So for example, some of the flaws I did was this is in the second round. In the I wrote HTML/CSS. Now both of them are front-end technologies. That's why I thought I would group them together. But then they were like, "Why are you separating it with the slash?" So they would nitpick on these small things, and they'll be like, they try to question, and then now those things would not be very important, but then it's how you answer and how you that matters.
Yeah.
That's so that's I think what they were trying to find out in the interview.
All
Again, they were doing projects, and then they asked me some experience about what I've done in SOST at that time. So,
Okay.
yeah, that was second round. The second round was a bit more tougher. They would always be like, "Are you sure? Are you sure?"
Okay.
So you would be in.
Yeah,
you'd
the
be
moment they say, "Are you sure?" then you're not sure.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, unless you're really confident. So, Fawaz, I remember that they then called all of you, and they also gave you some tips. What went right, what didn't
Right,
go right,
right.
and also they said, I think, how do you prepare yourself before you join? Anything?
Right. So I think some of our mistakes in the interview, or the most common mistake would be our core concepts were not very strong. Now I wouldn't say it was not strong, but it was definitely weak. But then again, when you go and interview, and you only had one day to prepare after the test, you get really nervous.
You don't prepare one day before the test. You prepare.
Yeah.
You're ready for it.
Yeah, you're ready for it.
that. It's
But
not-
then suddenly when you get called,
Yeah,
and then,
yeah. Yes,
you
yes.
get a bit nervous.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure your core concepts are good, and I would suggest these 5 subjects especially.
Which one?
In 3rd semester you'll learn data structures. So data structures. In 4th semester you'll learn design and analysis of algorithms. You'll also learn operating systems, and in the 5th semester you'll study computer networking and database. So these 5 subjects are key in almost any project or any team that you'll work. So having good foundation in these 5 subjects will be very good. So you learn stuff in college, then I would suggest after you go home, do some more research or watch videos on these topics.
Okay. So would you recommend any books or videos or whatever which are good?
Books, I don't really read books, but videos, there are a lot of videos online.
Okay, since there's so many, would you recommend a few which are really good?
Okay. This is one channel called Computer Science, Computer File. So these channels make like short videos on core concepts and stuff.
Okay.
So those would be good
All
for
right.
core concepts, computer science and computer file.
Oh, good. Yeah, I
Those
hope
are
that's
good.
helpful, because since there's so many, most of the time people don't even know what to check because there's so many, right? Yeah, all right. So that would be good, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So any message or any tips for your juniors, in case, or anyone who's listening, if they want to crack any technical core company, what should they be looking at or how should they be preparing?
Those 5 subjects
All right.
especially, and then have one project that is really good.
All right.
And make sure you understand the ins and outs of the projects and you have really worked on that project.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that should be, but you should do it well.
All right.
Yeah.
And competitive coding, like you very rightly said,
Yeah.
because otherwise you're eliminated right in the first round if you're not
Right.
able to code, right? So yeah. So thank you very much, Fawaz. Thank you so much. And I hope this was helpful. Till we meet again, it's bye from both of us.